Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, please do me a favor and subscribe. That would really help us out. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I've got a good one for you today. I've got author Jake Fraczek with me. So welcome, Jake.
Yes, pleasure. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Did I get it right?
Got it right, dude. I'm warm in the heart right now. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Yeah, in my head, it was going like 100 miles an hour with like every possible pronunciation. So
it's a tricky
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that came out. So welcome, Jake. I think this is going to be a fun one. I've been checking out some of your work and reading the book and looking through the podcast. It's always nice to talk to a fellow podcaster.
Yeah, it makes for good conversation because at least we know both what the fuck we're doing and there's no dead air.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you would think, like we interview a lot of actors and musicians, you would think that they're used to talking. Not all of them are.
No, they're terrible. If you're a bass player, you might play some great bass lines, but you don't know how to fucking, hold a conversation that's worth listening to. So this is a pleasure for me.
Yeah, me too. So Jake, let's start this way because I think you've got such an interesting background and kind of journey to becoming an author. So talk a little bit about yourself. Where you grew up. What molded you and got you to the place you are today.
I love talking about myself, so thank you for the opportunity. I think people that podcast, we like to. I was I grew up in the West Indies, in the Caribbean. Yeah. First on this island, Montserrat, for a very short amount of time. Then to an island, Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis, or sister islands. I lived there probably till I was about 5. My father owned a nightclub, bar, place with live music. Moved to the States. My mother's family is from Boston. My father's family is from the city of Springfield, Mass. So I moved to Springfield first, bounced around Western Massachusetts, Greenfield, Brattleboro, eventually Boston as a teenager, which was most of the place I lived the most in life. And as an adult, New York City, and now I live in Los Angeles. Always had a big imagination. My mother's parents were both artists, visual artists, painting and writing. And I was really into skateboarding, which was like art for me too. So I spent time alone here and there with nobody. So if you have a good imagination, you're not so bored. I never got bored.
That's right.
People got bored. So I always had something to do. I was drawing, painting, really into comic books or whatever the fuck was going on up here, man. I could just escape whatever was going on in my house, or I didn't want to be in school. I would escape in my mind. And then I got into music, in late teens, because it was like all these other artistic things, just a way to express myself. It just helps me process all the stuff that I'm taking in life, what's going on up here. And then I did the music thing for quite a while. I got to tour the world. I got to travel, really enjoy and get all this juice out of the fruit there. When I got soured, the music industry, believe it or not full of the best people, not the most upstanding citizens. And that's anywhere you go, any business side of shit, even the literary world where I'm now. But the music thing, because I held it so close to my heart, it really kind of soured me, or I should say my relationship with doing music professionally. And I just couldn't take having to fake the funk and deal with people being fake and be nice and play nice just because you never know what's going to benefit you and you want to get onto this website or this magazine or on this show. And I kind of rebirthed myself creatively always. And that's how I got into podcasting. And I was always writing short stories and poems, and that just started snowballing into my first book, QUICKSAND, and my new book, The Waiting Room. And that's what I do now. I write and I podcast, and used to have a radio show. So I like talking and writing.
Yeah, I know you've done quite a lot. Was it a culture shock moving from the Caribbean to Boston? Because that seems like exact opposites.
Yeah, I mean, weather-wise, it's certainly a difference, and culturally, I mean, my parents, to move to the West Indies in the first place, I mean, they were pretty. They'd be considered open-minded or forward-thinking or whatever. In Massachusetts, you know, it's people think of it as this great liberal state of learned folks because of colleges, and that's true. But then there's also a lot of small-minded mentalities, and that persists. Dude, I've seen that every city, every town, doesn't really matter where. And that was hard for me to adjust to as young. And people were a lot more aggressive, like my family members and kids in school. And I was coming from this place with palm trees and reggae music. And it's like, oh shit, you know? So that caught me off guard. And it took me a little while to eventually have to get a little more assertive and aggressive myself just to exist. And that was tough because it felt like I was going against the grain. But it became, now it's just a part of me. Now I guess I'm just like my uncles and my classmates and my cousins, you know, to a degree.
What so with your music, were you solo or were you in a band?
Both. I did solo stuff, and then my last few years was with a band, which I really enjoyed. But I was also assuming like pseudo managerial role as well as being like a front man, and I didn't like going left brain, right brain, you know, doing the creative and then having the book shows and stuff. And that also started draining me along with all the other shit I described.
Yeah. So I know your nickname was Jake the Snake, which I only know one. It's the wrestler. So where did yours come from? Now I know two.
Yeah, I own the trademark. I will say proudly. I've owned Jake the Snake for 17 years. He owns Jake the Snake Roberts. So, you know, loopholes, good lawyers. It circles back to the way you introduced me. It rhymed. It's way easier to pronounce than my last name. Everybody was butchering my last name as a kid, fucking teachers, literally coaches, friends, kids. So Jake the Snake was just easy. And then I stuck with that. And then in my artistic realms, like music or even radio, broadcasting, podcasting, still go by Jake the Snake. When I started writing books, I was like, you know what, dude, I want to rep this fucking last name. I'm like the last male Fraczek in Massachusetts, at least. I was like the last of the Mohicans. So I took a little more pride with it when I started, you know, getting published.
Yeah, that's right. How'd that go when you were in school, when the teacher calls your name, you're like, it's Jake the Snake?
Butchered me. Well, I didn't say, I don't think they acknowledged the Jake the Snake. There was so many times where I was sick of getting my name butchered. On my homework, I would write like some other name. Like say I saw a movie the night before, my homework, I was Marty McFly. You know, I was Peter Parker. I was anything else. And the teachers knew it was me, and they didn't really much enjoy that. So I got a little shit for that. But I mean, you know, people would butcher your name and there'd be like not a kid, like a teacher, like a coach. And instead of apologizing or trying to get it right, they would crack on you too. And I was like, fuck all of you guys. Yeah. So I went with Jake the Snake, and it was a little more stuck in their heads. But now I like using my last name. Hard to say.
Right. Well, yeah, it sounds more like an author, I think.
Yeah, I think it flies better than Jake the Snake when you see it on the bookshelf. Michael,
so go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I'm smoking a CBD weed cigarette. It's just to keep me mellow. It's not tobacco. I don't condone such a thing. May I proceed with such an activity?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Be comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask about your books, because you've written Quicksand, and then the new one is The Waiting Room, and they're both autobiographical. So talk a little bit about them. You know, what gave you the idea? And I know you're writing them kind of like essays, which I think is a really cool idea. So just talk a little bit about the books.
Thank you. I thought that was a cool idea too. And that's kind of why I wanted to do them like that. But to answer your first part, you know, not all, but most of the music I was writing was pretty personal, and poems I would write as a kid. And I was going through a dark time, a really bad love breakup triangle. And I found myself writing these little pieces just kind of as a way to, you know, to cope, or therapy, whatever you want to call it, expressing myself. And I found my writing skills shining through, and I was like, oh, I kind of like these little things. And so, and it was all true stories. You know, I changed other people's names, not mine. And I started having a collection more of them. I was like, there's like a theme here. This is for the first book, Quicksand. So I started compiling it, you know, and then writing with intent now, more pieces like that. And I was like, you know, Stephen King can come up with the craziest stories like this, or, you know, Elmore Leonard's got these great tales, and Ernest Hemingway. That's just not me. What do I have that I can play to as my strength? And I just have lived a real colorful life. And I'm pretty bold and honest with shit I've done or do. So I said, that's going to be my voice. They always say a writer's got to find their voice. I'm just going to talk about what I know. At least I'm not making it up. You can't take these stories away from me. You can't copy it because this is my life. I didn't come up with these ideas. So I just embraced it, which was a little scary, especially with this new book, because I'm putting my life on the line out there, I guess, and some other people's too. Family and friends read that, and that goes through your head. You're like, shit, am I going to be judged? Am I going to be people are going to be angry with me, or some people embrace it. Some people love it. It helps them connect with me. So I've embraced that as my style. And the essay style, like, it's short stories. They all go together, but they're not linear. It's like watching a movie that cuts back and forth, like Pulp Fiction or something. I always admired movies like that. So I try to do that with my writing and sprinkle in some little poems here and there, just to kind of separate myself from what other contemporary writers were doing, at least the ones I saw,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been reading through The Waiting Room, and yeah, you're really talented as a writer. Like, it's really good.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I thought really stood out. Like one, right from the beginning, I think you're talking about maybe going to a concert. You get pulled in like right away. Like, I was interested right away in what was going on. I thought that's not easy as a writer to get you really quick like that.
No, thank you, man. I really appreciate that compliment, particularly because with every piece, every chapter, whatever essay you want to call them, that was my goal. Is like, I want off the first line, every motherfucker that reads this to get sucked. Somebody gave me a really nice compliment. They're like, yo, I love the new book. The first chapter, I felt like I was strapping in for a ride. I got sucked in. And that's what I wanted. I want to grab you right away. People are impatient. They have shorter attention spans now.
Right.
You can binge watch 10, 30-minute episodes before someone watches a 2-hour movie or picks up a thick book. Another reason why my books they're not too scary. They're not too thick. I want you to want more rather than get bored and stop reading halfway through. So I cut out all the fat. It's just the real meat, the good protein in there, just to suck you in,
Yeah, well, I think it does that really quick. And the other thing I liked is that you don't hold anything back. It's just a very raw look at your life, and that's not easy to do either. For just the reason you said, are you going to get judged? Is it going to upset people? And you didn't worry about that. At least it didn't feel like you did.
Yeah, I mean, I worried about it, but not enough to stop me from doing it. There were some chapters, you always edit things out. Not everything makes a cut because maybe it's repetitive or it's just not good. But there was times I looked at stuff, and especially with this book, it's very, family stuff. And I'm like, maybe this is too much. And then I was like, Snake Man, you're not cutting out shit because it's good. You cut out the bad shit. If this is a good chapter, a good paragraph, fuck it, man. Put it in there. Put it on the line, because that's what's drawing anyone to my books, is what you said, the rawness of it,
Yeah.
I'm not a Hemingway, I'm not a Stephen King. I don't churn out 1,000 books a month. I got to play to my strengths, which is my boldness, my openness, or being comfortable in vulnerability.
Yeah. I think it would be a really good audiobook too.
Oh, it's coming. There's an audiobook for the first one, which I read, and there's an audiobook coming for this. I wanted to give it a few months. It just came out. I want to let the hard copies and Kindles breathe, but I will be doing another audiobook, again, read by myself. But you can check out QUICKSAND audiobooks out there on Audible and Amazon.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. It has to be read by you. I don't think it would have the impact otherwise.
You were a sharp man, Michael. I don't know if anyone told you that. You were an astute man, because believe it or not, the publisher of my first book, when it came audiobook time, they're like, look, you want to do the audiobook? Great. We got a few guys that could do it, in our office. It's going to cost X amount. And I was like, whoa. I host a
like Jake froze up. I'm going to hit pause. We'll be right. All right, we're back. So repeat that last thought.
I wanted it to be read in my voice, because that's what my fans were listening to on the radio show, the podcast. So it would only be right to apply to the book, and then it's read with my inflections, my own meter of speech. So there will be the Waiting Room audiobook coming real soon too. It's much different than recording music. Going in there and reading a book that you wrote, that was definitely a learning curve for me. It was different than podcasting or singing or rapping or anything. I had to get that one down,
Yeah. That can't be easy. That voice work like that, difficult. How long did it take you to record the book?
I'm going to sound like a pompous asshole. A few hours.
Wow.
But I linked up with a kid, Chris Soper. He's a very decorated music producer, platinum plaques, a Grammy nominated guy. I used to do music with him. He also has a studio in Los Angeles. I said, yo, audiobook, I want to go where I'm comfortable. I've recorded so much music with this guy. And he had done audiobooks. That was the other thing. He knew how to do it. So he could tell me what would work. And it was hard. You know, when you podcast, we speak freely. When I was doing this, I had to make sure I enunciated and hit everything. But it still sounded like me. And sometimes I don't enunciate. So it was a hard balance to strike, you know?
Yeah, I think I'd have a hard time with that because it's so different. In podcasts, you're just having a conversation, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. But that you have to really be aware of how you're sounding.
For round 2, I think I'll be a little sharper.
Yeah. That's exciting. So will there be more books? Is there more to be written?
Certainly. I'm already been working on a third book that it's slightly different than the first 2. The first 2 were these, you know, dark comedic short stories that had some underlying theme. The first one was a redemption or reconnection with a woman I loved. The second one was kind of reconnecting with my terminally ill father. The new book, it's still my style of writing, but I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be something a little different. It's all true stories still, but it's going to have a different component that's going to enhance it. So I've started working on that. I'm doing a lot of press for this one. When that slows down, I'll get more time to delve completely into that book. But hopefully it'll be out sooner than later.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's so exciting to write like that. Did you try different styles before you chose the essay form?
When I was younger, you know, I would write like other kids' school papers, or when I was very young, I would write some stories like completely fictional. But I was coming from out of my imagination.
Yeah.
And I found like pulling from reality, there's some shit you just can't make up. You know, if you read it, you'd be like, you can't make this up. And that's what I wanted the quality of my stories to have. So I had to think back to all these things that I lived through. And then just the natural course of my life, more shit kept happening where I just find myself in these situations. And it took a certain perspective to see a humoristic element to it and a way to tell that story that, like, I talk about having to take a drug test for a job, but that might not sound interesting. But if you tell the story right, it's compelling and hilarious, you know?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I thought one thing you do really well is it's very descriptive, including your interactions with other people. Like it feels like you're right there kind of watching, standing next to you.
Yeah. It's like some of my favorite musicians, specifically hip hop artists, were storytellers like Slick Rick and Nas and Biggie. And you'd listen to it and I felt like I'm watching a movie, or, you know, like even like Bob Dylan lyrics, it felt like it played out like a play in front of me. And I wanted anybody reading these stories to feel like they were right there, as close as they could be, you know?
Yeah. Any aspirations to turn this into a TV show?
I've had a few people suggest that, and I mean, who would not want to see their story adapted to the screen? I'm humble, but I ain't that humble. So I would love for that. I haven't personally myself done the adaptation thing yet, but I've been thinking about it more and more as people suggest it. So I got to reach out to anybody, and if anybody wants to adapt it or whatever, reach out to me, you know?
Yeah. Well, with the essay form, to me, it's similar to screenplay writing, you know, like episode writing for a TV show. So I don't know that it would be a difficult adaptation.
Thank you for giving me some wind in my sails. I need that kind of positive motivation to do so, because I don't have to learn a new skill. I want to hopefully adapt.
So as a podcaster, your podcast is called Damaged Goods. Yep. So talk a little bit about that. What does that name mean, and what kind of show do you run?
The show is conversations with me and somebody from the various arts, musician, writer, dancer, director, the manager of a musician, somebody, you know, it's not like the CEO of a corporation or, you know, politician. It's artsy people. But it's not like interview style. It's conversations where through the conversation, and maybe it reveals a bit about how this person does their art, or, you know, in their life. But in the conversations, we might touch on some things that made the artistic process a little hard, or how it was very important for their self-benefit. the damaged parts of things, laughing at the rough elements of life. Kind of like my books, like some dark humor. So it's a humorous podcast overall, but there's definitely, I guess, serious undertones or serious subject matter at times, sensitive material, shit like that.
Does that make it difficult to get guests or easier?
I mean, when you say only artists, it limits people. I've been blessed that I know a good amount, or people recommend them, or some people reach out, or I reach out to them. And I try to keep my eyes open for anything anybody I think is interesting. But it definitely limits it, especially like, if it was just me and my co-host, if I had a co-host and we just talked, then I don't have to rely on anybody. It's what it's like. Sometimes it's tough with other people's schedules, and you want to go weekly, which is like what you do. That's a hard schedule to keep up when you're relying on other people.
That's right.
So, I've thought about it, man. If I just had a niche true crime podcast or a niche sports podcast, I'd probably be a little more successful because it's specified and I don't have to rely on other people. But it's the way I like to do it. It's how I enjoy it. So I don't want to do it if I'm not having fun,
That's right. That's right. So you did the radio thing. Did that is that what led you into podcasting?
No, I was actually started the podcast before it.
Okay.
I got the radio thing. Well, I messed around with like radio in like high school and college, but
right.
And then it was nice because, the radio show, we're interviewing artists, and I was allowed to curse. It was on Dash Radio, which is like the world's largest digital radio, but it was, songs, 15 minutes. I get to talk for 5-minute segment or 8-minute interview. I really like the long form podcasting. And then it was my co-host show, and I got brought on as the co-host. She was the DJ and would talk, and I would do more of the on-air talking. And then there was a bunch of changes at the station, and so the show went away, and then I was offered my own show. But again, it was in the music format. And like I said, I really like the podcasting, the long form. That's what I want. If you were going to give me something, I would have wanted a talk show. So I just stuck with the podcast and the writing right now, just really focusing on that.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I watched some clips from the radio show. It was kind of a neat format because you talk for a minute, then you'd have some music and talk a little bit more. It was kind of neat.
I mean, it's different than like podcasting level, what you and I do. I like the difference of them was very fun. The radio, like I had to be, on point with like, oh, the music's about to end. We got to come in. I have to shout out the phone numbers. When I just podcast, like I'm a lot more relaxed. Like even being on your show right now, it just always feels a little less formal.
Yeah. It's so much easier, I think. Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of work after, but during, not nearly as difficult.
Yeah. Afterwards, cleaning it up, editing, all that stuff. But yeah, I don't feel like when I was on the radio show, it's 3 hours, we're live. Also, it gets replayed, but you got to be on. And I would be on. I like the rush from it all, but podcasting, man, sometimes I have some of the most interesting things I learned through conversations, and or just laugh fucking super hard,
Did you do the music? Did you have a theme music?
Oh, on my podcast?
Yeah.
That's produced by a guy named Evil Earn, a music producer back in Boston, one of my good friends. And he did a lot of music for me and other people I know. When I was coming up with the podcast, I needed some theme music. I asked him. He came up with a few things. I heard that. I thought it was perfect. So I ran with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Any thoughts to eventually get back to music?
Somebody actually asked me that the other day. They called me and there's an album coming out. They wanted me to put my vocals on it. And I might mess around with music, but I haven't attempted anything professional in a while. And that's a conscious decision because I like to do shit. My art comes with passion. So when I'm writing or podcasting, I'm really into it. I want to do it. I'm not forcing it, maybe some freelance writing job, you get a check, whatever. But my passion to create music professionally isn't really strong right now. So if I'm doing it, I feel like I would be just going through the motions and I would be cheating myself. I'm putting out a half-assed product that I'm not really into. Is it going to dilute or take away from the art that I do care about? Like my books, my writing, my podcast. So right now, no. If the feeling strikes my heart and I feel like I want to, I would. It just hasn't right now,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, if you can't put everything into it, do you really want it out there for people to see and then be like, well, that was just okay?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't really like half-assing anything, at least in the public eyes. I go surfing some days, I'm 100%, sometimes I'm 50%, but that's not going on the internet. That's not for sale. So I don't mind fucking going half-ass in my personal life, but my art I take very serious, you know, it's personal.
Yeah. I'm jealous of the surfing stuff, although the water out your way is so cold.
Where are you? I detect an accent. I was going to say New York, maybe Philadelphia, but
No. So I'm West Virginia.
I knew you was definitely not from New York or Philly, but yeah, West Virginia. You guys have, I mean, I think the Atlantic is cold too, though. I don't know. I find them both.
Yeah. Well, you know, in West Virginia, our beach of choice is Myrtle Beach. So it's warm.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach is beautiful. I've had some fun times there, man. Great seafood. I went to an alligator farm out there. I watched a bunch of albino white alligators get fed whole chickens. And then we had really good oysters and went to some random strip club out there. I like that.
The first time I went out to LA to the beach, you know, and walked, I tried to walk out into the water. I got about thigh high and couldn't feel my legs.
No, I mean, it's cold right now when I'm surfing in this time of the year. I'm wearing a wetsuit that's pretty big. And without even that, after an hour and a half, the toes get a little chilly. So it's not tropical by any means. It isn't Myrtle Beach warm, but all year round I go in it. So I'm toughening up over the time.
That's right. You're tough. Yeah, I know. LA, they can handle the cold water, can't handle cold weather. Like 50-degree weather comes through, they freak out.
I've turned into a baby the 6.5 years I've lived here. I had a sweatshirt on and socks last night. And you know, I'm from the Northeast. Technically, I should be fine, but not at all. It erodes quickly out here. Your strength.
Yeah, it's pretty. We laugh about, you know, other states because, you know, we still get pretty heavy snows at time, and it doesn't really stop anything. Everybody just keeps on going.
What's the major city in West Virginia?
So for us, we're located just outside Charleston. That's the capital. Okay. You know, I mean, we don't have a ton, but there's Wheeling, Martinsburg, Huntington, Charleston. That's about it.
So I used to work for this band Slayer, this heavy metal band.
Yeah, I know Slayer.
Yeah, I was a roadie for them for like 5 years. Great guys, and we're on a tour, and we're in. I want to say it was Huntington. And we're playing, and it's a small, looks like it'd be like a minor league hockey arena. It probably could fit 6,000 people max.
Oh yeah, it was Big Sandy Arena, I'd say.
Okay, so we're there, right? And you know, our tour buses are in the back. We're all backstage with our radios on, and our production manager, our boss, calls all the crew backstage. And Slayer hasn't gone on yet. It's some of the opening bands. He's like, hey, it brings all of us in. We're like, what? He's like, listen, guys, if you're going to go out to the buses or anything, don't go out for a little while. Be careful. Just across the street at the Holiday Inn, there's an active shooter shooting up the lobby at the Holiday Inn. And I was like, how come? I'm glad they didn't announce that in the venue, because then you have 6,000 fans who are drunk off, like, you know, beers,
going out,
sweaty. Police did what they did, and you know, the guys apprehended. Everybody in this venue does. They don't know. There's a mosh pit going on. There's blood and beer flying, and no one knows if shots were just ringing out across the street at the Holiday Inn. That's my West Virginia story for right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And you're right. Big Sandy was a minor league hockey rink for a while.
My memory's still there, just barely, but it's still there.
Yeah. It's college town, so that's where Marshall University is.
All right. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I saw a lot of college kids walking around that were not coming to the show, but they were walking about town looking like they was having fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So are you artistic in other ways? Do you paint or sculpt, anything like that?
I used to paint and draw, like that was my whole youth. I all the illustrations in both my books I did the pencil work for.
Oh, very nice.
I don't draw and paint like I used to. I started doing it again mainly for the books, but that was my whole like young youth, especially graphic art like comic books. And painting. I don't sculpt. I surf now. I take that as an artistic expression. I love to cook, which I think is an art.
Nice.
Cooking in the kitchen. I still skateboard a little bit, but like an older man's version of it. My knees are more, so, you know. So I think that's why it wasn't so heartbreaking when I left music and stuff, because before I was even doing music, I was always an artist, just finding different canvases. And now my canvas is, you know, typewriter or a computer or a microphone podcast setup, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You have to adapt as you get older.
You do. And I like spreading my wings. I have some friends who they've only done one art their whole life and they're still doing it. They're playing guitar for 30 years and that's what they only want to do. And that's beautiful. But I've always found I can express myself through different outlets, different ways, if my passion's there for it, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. So if the book becomes a TV show, will you play yourself in the book, in the show?
I don't know. It depends when they adapt it. I might have too many graves to play a young me.
Well, yeah. So that begs the question. Any thoughts on who could play a young you?
You know, who would you think? Any of the actors I like, I don't think look like me enough.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily have to look like you.
Hollywood,
they just have to have the energy.
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend said Christian Bale, not because we look alike, but because he's intense and temperamental.
Oh, he could do it. Yeah, he could totally do it. But he's kind of older now too.
Exactly. So I don't know. I'd have to find one of these younger guys.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd have to think about it. I'm sure I could come up with some, but yeah, I'd have to think about it. But you'd have to be in it, right? You'd have to have a role.
I'd want like a cool cameo or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, at least let me be on set. They might have to hang out with me for a week or something to get the character down right, my daily habits and what have you.
Yeah, you got to make that a part of it, right? You know, if you option the book, you got to be like, well, I got to be able to come on set.
I hope whoever signs on to play me is interested in doing that. Like, you know, a real method actor. They come hang out with me. They got to dress like me. My wake up routine, my nighttime routines, and they might be a little too wild, but a good actor will get in there and get his hands dirty, you know?
Yeah. Well, you need a method actor.
Yeah, I need like Marlon Brando's 80 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Tom Hardy, but he's a little too stocky. He's got to get a little skinnier.
Yeah. Well, you never know. If he's method, he might.
That's true, right? He could go the Christian Bale route, lose some of those pounds, you know?
Drop some weight. You never know. So what's next? What's next for Jake? What are you thinking about trying?
Well, promoting the hell out of The Waiting Room right now, because it's out now. You guys go get it online everywhere, or select bookstores, Kindles, Amazons, Barnes and Nobles. This third book that I'm working on, I want to iron it out and see what it's like for me doing something a little different. And then I think I might give it a little push at the adaptation of these two books for something, whether TV shows or a movie.
Yeah. Why not? At least work up a pitch and a Bible, you know, that you can
got to start doing that.
Market around a little bit. I think now's the time. There's so many outlets.
There's tons.
You know, there's a ton. And there's shows out there that wouldn't be way off of your book. You know, I think like Dave, I don't know if you ever saw FX Dave. That's kind of, you know, it's kind of an autobiographical thing. Atlanta, I think is similar to that. It's the right time. We got to get it out there.
And there's a lot of crap out there too, Michael. And if they're giving all these guys shows, why not adapt
right
fucking masterpieces?
Yes, that's exactly right. There's some stuff out there that you're just like, who greenlit this?
Somebody's uncle works at Netflix or something. I wish mine, you know.
Hilarious. Well, Jake, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we got to do this again. Maybe when the third book's ready to come out.
On my show sometime.
Anytime.
Damaged goods, and I've always love to be back, man. I would be honored.
Yeah. Anytime. Just holler. So let's see a couple of things before we wrap up. You mentioned where we can find the book. You know, where can we find the podcast? Where can we find you on social media?
The podcast, Damaged Goods Podcast, any major platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, usually the top two, Stitcher, YouTube. On social media, you can follow me at Jake Fraczek. That's at JakeFraczek, at Damaged Goods Podcast. On Twitter, I'm at JTheS, which is Jake the Snake. DamagedGoodsPodcast.com has got a lot of that. The books on, you know, like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kindle, audio books coming soon, select stores depending on where you live. Walmart even carries the book, The Waiting Room, so it's out there too. You go get a big jumbo bag of candy, some shotgun shells, and The Waiting Room.
That's pretty great. Yeah. Hey, if you make Walmart, I think you've made it.
I did it.
Yeah, you're. I'm following you on Twitter and Instagram. Pretty funny stuff you're putting.
All right, I gotta follow you too, man. Thank you. Yeah, I try to use the humor as a way that I can slip into poetry, like the vitamin in the ice cream.
Yes. I like that. I like that. I wanted to mention that with your podcast. What was this? It's take one tablet to the ear, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like a prescription medicine bottle. That was my doing.
Yeah, that's funny stuff. That's good stuff. Well, Jake, thank you so much. And yeah, definitely open invitation. You come back.
Definitely, man. You too, man. Have a great day. Thank you, dude.
Yeah. Hold on one second. That was a lot of fun for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. I love talking with energetic, fun people, and especially fellow podcasters. That's a good time for me. We were talking off camera a little bit about, when you get two podcasters together, you normally don't have a ton of dead air because you're used to talking. Sometimes when you bring guests on, surprisingly, not everyone is used to kind of having those type of conversations where you keep the conversation going. You don't let the pauses get too long. So that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you'll check out his book, The Waiting Room. It's really well done. For someone that's fairly new to writing, this is his second book. It's really good. It's entertaining. It draws you in, and it's raw. It's really telling you exactly how it happens. So I think you'll enjoy that. The Waiting Room. Definitely check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Don't take that for granted at all. There's a million billion podcasts out there, but you keep coming back to us, and we really appreciate that. If you haven't done so yet, please do us a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pop. We're trying to grow those numbers. That would be a huge help. You can find all 400 episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. There's a fun, geeky blog that Brett writes. It's terrific. He's such a good writer. If we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on a location, if we're covering a convention, that'll be on the website, meistercon.com. And please refer us to your friends. We rely a lot on word of mouth. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing and hearing, please pass us on. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.